Join me today as we take care of pruning our roses and getting them ready for the growing season. What's up, YouTube? Thanks so much for joining me back on the channel here today. I'm Ray, and I'm so excited you've tuned in to Horticulture Geek today because we are talking about roses. It is February here. February is the time to prune your roses. A good rule of thumb to remember is obviously Valentine's Day. Roses are the flower of love. February hosts Valentine's Day. So if you can remember that roses get pruned and taken care of in February in conjunction with Valentine's Day. Now, this is not an exact science. You don't have to prune and take care of your roses immediately on Valentine's Day. As a matter of fact, I'm not. Here we are today. I have time and we're gonna work on it. So how do we prune and take care of our roses? Rose care is one of those things that is important because roses, for most of us, can be problem plants, especially those of us in the South, because we have such high humidity here in the South. Roses are very prone to problems like powdery mildew, rust, and those types of things. And black spot. So we have to make sure that we prune and treat and care for our roses if we want them to remain healthy and provide us beautiful color throughout the growing season. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to start off by pruning this rose. Now, the same rule of thumb for roses as applies for most things that you want to prune. You want to start out with your 3 Ds first. You're diseased, you're dead, and you're dying. So when we are looking at the structure of a rose bush, we are looking to see what in here actually looks dead. You can actually physically see it's no longer viable, it's hardened off, it's dead, done. And there are several examples of that in this bush. Right here is a cane. I don't know how good you can see it, but we'll zoom in a minute. That is absolutely dead. So we're gonna prune that out. Diseased and dying. So we're gonna look then, and once we get all the dead out, we're gonna look and see what canes or what parts of the rose bush, and the sticks and the structure of a rose bush is called canes. We're gonna look to see, does anything look sick? Does anything look like it has disease on it? And can I visibly see major issues on this plant? And if we see any of that stuff, is it broken, damaged, diseased? We're going to prune that out. If maybe this, over the course of the winter, you had a heavy snow load and it broke some of your branches, cracked them in half. We're going to go ahead and prune all that out, okay? So those are our 3 Ds, dead, diseased, and damaged. So we're going to look for that and clean this plant out. Once we've done that and we're left with whatever's left, then we're going to look at the size of the rose, okay? Now, as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to bring a plant down more than about 1/3, okay? Roses can handle a little more than other things can, but if you just want a general rule of thumb, 1/3. So this plant is up here right now, and so what I'll need to do is I just think about it in thirds, so 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to shoot to come in around here as my bringing it down to control the size of this canopy. So that's kind of the area I'm going to shoot for. Now the other thing is with roses is that to prevent powdery mildew and black spot and those things, roses need good airflow, okay? Because when you have a plant in a high humidity area that leafs out fully and creates a thick canopy where air and breezes can't actively get in there, that's when you have those problems set in. So we're going to look to make sure we clean up this canopy. Are there branches that are crossing? Are there branches that are coming up into the center of the plant that is going to, once filled out with leaves, going to bulk this up too much and restrict our airflow? We're going to try to clean all of that out as well, just so that we can open up the interior and the canes that are left will have a nice airflow. They won't be in competition with other rogue canes. We've brought it down to a more manageable size, and in that way in the spring When it flushes out and gets ready to go, ooh, the wind got me. It'll be ready to go. Now, once we get all of this pruned, then we're going to talk about some treatment for these issues and feeding our roses. So what I'm going to do now, and again, I apologize for the wind if it's picking up on the microphone. So I'm going to actually get set down here and get the camera set up, and we're going to actually start working through some of these cuts. So let me flip the camera around for a second and just kind of zoom in here and point out some things that you need to see. All right, so here is this rose bush. So again, right here is what I was talking about. That is a dead cane. You can see there's no growth on it. It's browned, it's crispy, it's fallen apart. So and in contrast to this cane here, you can see this cane is green. It looks healthy, okay? So we know that that's a fresh cane. So we're gonna look for all of these. Look, here's the cluster here. Dead. So we're gonna look for those and get them out. Now let's look right in here. So look at this right here. So this branch, and this is a previous prune right there, but look how that branch is touching this branch now. So obviously we don't want branches or canes on the rose to touch. So I'm gonna need to come in and remove this. Now it also happens that this whole cane is dead. So we're just gonna take this whole cane back, and that's gonna open up the canopy. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. So let me get set up with the camera and we'll start making some cuts. Here we go. All right, so I'm at my rose bush and I have a pair of sharp and clean pruners. If you have used your pruners to prune other roses or other plants that have disease or fungal infections, even if you don't know they're there, clean your pruners first. One of the fastest ways you will spread a viral or fungal infection from plant to plant across your garden is to use contaminated pruners. So I took these pruners in the house before this job just a few minutes ago, and I washed them thoroughly, okay? They are clean and sterilized. You can do that in mild soapy water. You can do that with alcohol swabs, whatever you prefer. Make sure that your pruners are clean. So now that I'm setting here, like I said, let's go ahead and get into the 3 Ds first: dead, diseased, and dying. And we're just gonna start coming in here and making cuts. And getting these dead, diseased, or dying canes out of the plant. Okay, so now I've come through the plant and I've got all the dead, diseased, and dying out. So now I'm gonna focus in on branches that are crossing or going in directions that they don't need to go. So in this scenario, I'm up against the fence here. So if I had a very strong cane, well, a leader cane that was shooting off directly into this fence, I would trim that at a growth point to encourage that plant to grow either up or back out, okay? I don't need plants going into the fence. So if that's something that you're dealing with as well, then you can definitely do that as well. And let me bring you in and show you a cut like that.
Okay, so as you can see here, just by getting the dead, diseased, and dying out of the plant, it's already opened it up a whole bunch. And here, right here's a thing I missed. So you can see these are old spent flower heads that were left. They're obviously dead for this season, so I'm gonna cut those off. Okay, just get those out of there. But now, back to my point. So if you are going to prune a rose, okay, if it is going in a direction that you don't want it to grow, okay, so if this cane is growing directly into a fence or into an air conditioner unit or into the side of your house and you need to prune it away, you're going to come back to a leaf growth point right there, okay, and if that is going in the direction that you want it to go, great, you could prune it there. But if that one, since it's going to be pointing out this direction, if that is not where you want it to go, maybe you come down to this one because it's growing out. So for me, I'm going to come to this one and just make a quick snip right there. Let me get this to focus. And so now when this cane grows, that branch is going to come and grow out this way and not towards my fence. So that's where you want to start pruning at that point. And now then, let's talk about bringing this rose bush down to size. So like I said earlier, we want to think about in thirds. And like I said, mine is going to be right in here. So at this point, I'm going to set the camera back up and I'm going to go in and I'm going to start pruning down for the size control. And then any branches that are going to restrict the air movement, I'm going to prune those out as well. So here we go.
I've got those cuts done. I've pruned down a little bit, brought my overall height down, and I think that's pretty good right there. And I did some preliminary pruning of some things that I thought were just going to be growing in the wrong direction. But now let's have you come in here and look. Let me flip the camera around so you can see this with me. Okay, hopefully you can see now what's going on. So this rose is fairly opened up, but there's still an issue there, and it's right here. So this cane here is coming, and look, it is touching this cane here, okay? And since I've already got a cane coming here, I have to decide, do I want this cane to come towards this patio, or do I want this cane to come up? And in this situation, what I'm gonna choose is actually kind of a combination of both of them. I've got this strong cane here, but I've got a branch coming off right there. Let me zoom in where you can see. Okay, so it's coming here, but there's a branch going that way, which I kind of want. So I'm just going to snip right there. Instantly, that has opened up that canopy. Those plants are no longer competing for airspace, and that new branch is going to go that way, which will be good because I don't have a branch that way. This right here is coming up, and look, then it's turning here and coming out towards open space. But this right here is going to start competing with all this stuff here. So I'm actually going to come in right here and get rid of that as well. And so now that plant has truly opened up. The branches that are remaining are going to be going in an area where they should not compete with other branches or canes that bad, and the airflow should stay good and moving around this plant through the growing season. All right, so now that I've got the plant all pruned up, I'm happy with how it looks. It's open, there's gonna be ready for air movement, it's gonna be ready for the growing season. Now, here's something to tell you. If you have a rose that truly is covered in issues like black spot, powdery mildew, you can see mine has already started to put out fresh green leaves for the season. If you need to, go ahead and strip every leaf off of your rose right now when you do this job. Take everything back to bare canes, no fresh green growth on the plant. Get rid of all the leaves, all the old flower heads. Get rid of everything. Only keep the canes you want to keep. And then we're going to treat our plant. Now, this rose is not that bad. It is not infested with black spot or powdery mildew. These fresh leaves appear to be disease and fungus free at this point. So I'm going to leave mine, but I'm still going to treat them because I don't want those things to come forward. So I'm using an organic product. Whoop, right here. I'm using Captain Jack's copper fungicide. And this specifically controls plant diseases like black spot and powdery mildew and a host of other things. And it is made for all sorts of things, including roses. This is really one of the better things I found on the market that I like to use, and it is organic and it does work, okay? So this is a very simple process. So now that I've got my plant pruned and ready, now I don't want to do this before I prune my plant because then I'm going to be wasting a ton of this product on a plant that is just going to be pruned off and I'm going to lose that product, right? So, but now that I have this plant pruned and cleaned and ready to go, it's a very simple process. I'm just going to give the plant a nice drench of this material. Okay, and you can see I'm working my way up and down the canes. I'm spraying the leaves, I'm spraying the canes, I'm spraying everything. I want this product to cover this plant so that if there is some problems on there, this will take care of it. If I skip a piece or a part or a section of the plant, then that fungus isn't going to be treated and it's just going to bloom and continue on its merry way. So we want to make real sure we take our time and do this properly. Okay, so as you just saw, I fully sprayed this plant. I covered all of it, as much as I could get. Every nook and cranny I tried to spray and drench so that the product could do the job that I'm investing in it to do. If you're going to take the time to buy these products to try to solve these issues, make sure that you use them and not just a little. I've seen people do this where they just come out and just do a little spritz and think that's enough. They walk away and their problem doesn't go away, okay? I thoroughly saturated this plant, all parts of it, to make sure that that product will do the job I want it to do. So now then, once this dries, because I don't want to be fooling with it right now, that copper fungicide needs to soak into the plant and dry up. But the next step that we're going to talk about here is actually fertilizing this plant. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and clean this flower bed out from under this rose. I want to make sure that any of that material that I pruned off, any of the old leaves, any of the old debris from around this rose is no longer there, okay? So I'm going to come in, I'm going to use my garden rake, I'm going to get down with my hands and gloves, and I'm going to clean this area all around the plant, okay? What is called the drip zone of the plant, okay? So, you know, a good foot to 2 foot around the plant, get all that old material out, because all those funguses, bacteria, and even insects and pests can harbor over in that old material and then just come right back up into your rose this growing season. So I'm going to come in and clean all of that out after the copper fungicide dries. Once I have the area cleaned out and I'm down to good soil, then I'm going to come in with rose tone. Now, if you don't have rose tone, you can use plant tone or another generic fertilizer. But rose tone really is good, and it is an organic product specifically formulated to give your roses the boost they need for the growing season and to make sure that they thrive, flourish, and produce big, beautiful blooms. So I recommend using a rose tone product or another rose formulated product to fertilize. And we're just gonna come in, again, around that drip zone that we just cleaned out, so around the root area of that plant, we're gonna apply this. This is a granular, and it takes about a cup and a half around the plant, and we just work that in and water that in, and then our rose is good to go. And then you have a healthy, clean rose that is absolutely set up for success for the growing season. All right, guys, I moved under the garage to try to get out of the wind to wrap up this video. Again, if the wind noise or the wind shaking the camera was a bit much, I do apologize, I'm sorry. But I wanted to get this project done today, and I wanted you guys to come along. So that's where we're at with rose pruning. So February is your month for most of us in the United States. And honestly, if you're watching from outside of the United States, our growing zones, while your countries don't necessarily have growing zones set up the way we do, you know, most of the zones are still the same. So for most people around the world, now is a great time to prune roses. Unless you're in super cold climates, you still probably have a few weeks to go, okay? But rose pruning is not a complicated process. You just have to take your time. Remember our 3 Ds, dead, diseased, and dying. And then we're gonna shape and we're gonna clean out to make sure that that plant has good airflow, has a good structure, and all the canes that we leave are pointed in appropriate directions for where we have that plant placed. If you knock those things out, you're gonna be left with a rose that is good to go. Then you're gonna treat your rose for the pests that roses get, the funguses, and you can use pesticides for pests if you have an active pest infestation, but roses typically get fungal and viral infections, so use something like the copper fungicide to treat those issues. Even if you don't see them on your rose right now, it's a good idea to do that preventative treatment to prevent them from coming, especially if you live in a high humid climate like the South here in the United States. So use a product like that to get that treated, and then clean out from under your roses to make sure that any critters or viruses or anything isn't harboring over in that soil that will then just creep right back up into your plant, okay? So roses require a little bit of work. Now, here's what I'm gonna tell you as well, and this is just Horticulture Geek Ray's personal opinion. If you're gonna do all this work on a rose, it needs to be a rose that you're invested in and that you like, okay? I have seen gardeners invest so much time, money, and energy into doing all this work on roses that just have severe problems. And it's almost like a never-ending battle. And I want you to remember that you need to consider your investment in this rose. In today's retail market, a standard rose bush in most big box garden stores costs you $12.99 or $14.99. A Boston fern costs you $12.99 or $14.99. And 90% of gardeners out there have no issues taking a Boston fern at the end of the summer when winter's coming on and throwing it in the trash and getting rid of it and saying, I'll just buy a fresh, pretty green Boston fern next year. Roses can be the same way. If you have a minimal investment in this rose, and that plant has proven to be problematic for you, it's got black spot, it's got powdery mildew, it's got aphids, it's got other stuff, it may be better for you at that point to just dig that plant out, discard it, and try a different rose. And here's the other thing that I'm going to tell you as well. Not all roses are created equal. So when you're picking up roses at a big box store with uneducated gardeners running those stores, it's very common to see types of roses that aren't necessarily great for the climates they're being sold in, okay? So if you truly want a good rose, I would encourage you to do your research. Go to your garden centers, your local reputable garden centers, and see what varieties they're carrying, okay? Talk to them and see what they recommend. And then if you can find that variety at a big box store cheaper, by all means, pick it up from the big box store. Or you can go to reputable companies like David Austin Roses, where you can put in your zone information, your growing information, and it will give you varieties that it recommends for those growing situations. That's always something really good to do. But if you have a rose bush that is just giving you nothing but problems, chances are it's not a good rose for your climate and your growing zone. And it's so heavily infested that it's going to take you a lot of money and product and chemicals to fix it, and a lot of time and energy to fix it. It may not be worth it if you only paid $12.99 for the thing in the first place, okay? So that's kind of my spiel, my soapbox for you, is that if you're watching this video trying to figure out how to deal with a sick rose bush, and you're in an area with high humidity, you've got issues, you've got stuff going on, and you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I wish I could grow pretty roses, but I can't grow my roses. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. That's probably your issues, is that you're probably picking up cheap roses from the grocery store or the big box store that just aren't good varieties for your area. They're prone to these issues. They're picking these issues up in your garden very quickly, and then they're suffering with it the entire season. So keep that in mind. If you've got those issues, I would say chunk that rose and invest in a rose that's better suited for your garden, that's going to be easier on you, your time, and your pocketbook. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope it has inspired you to get out and take care of your roses. And if you haven't tried roses yet, if you get the right ones and you treat them well, they can be fairly easy plants to use. So get out there and try them, see what you can find. Check out your garden centers with people who know what they're doing. Check out reputable companies online like David Austin Roses, and get you some good roses and add them into your garden, and I promise you're gonna love them. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below. I'll do my very best to answer them and get back to you. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. And now, if you haven't subscribed to me yet here at Horticulture Geek, I would certainly wish that you would do that. I would appreciate it if you would. My algorithm does tell me that a lot of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you will just hit that subscription and hit that notification bell, it'll tell you every time I post a new video, and it'll be easier for you to follow along on the journey here with me in the Horticulture Geek Gardens. I think that's going to wrap it up for me today. Like I said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. But until next time, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the best and happy gardening.